Hi, my name is Ariana Bandy, and while working with this group, my job was a script writer. One main thing I had to incorporate while writing the script was the main focus of the project. While there could have been many different routes we could have taken, while creating this documentary, I think the main thing that helped us decide on this factor was thinking about how the documentary would start versus how it would end. We decided as a group that the easiest and most efficient way to get all of our thoughts across to the audience would be to narrow in on if Rupp was racist or not, but we chose to not take a side in the argument. Our papers collided with this perfectly, as we were able to raise awareness about the trending topic while also providing the knowledge they probably didn't hear of before. Through the media, most things addressed were only things that made people believe Rupp was racist. But the script included insights to both sides equally. Our goal was to describe both points of view in great detail and leave a hanging question for the audience to decide for themselves whether Rupp was racist or not.
With all the given information, do you guys think he was a racist?
With all of the information built up and both sides of the story explained, we thought this route was a good idea and would catch the audience's attention the best way possible. Another thing I had to think of while writing the script was the audience. Since we intended to have a potentially younger audience, such as students, staff, and fans of UK basketball, that had an effect on how I worded certain phrases, so that I kept a hold on the audience's attention. Writing the script was kind of a struggle for me at first because I kept failing to include enough details to the point where someone who hadn't done any research could fully understand what was going on at all times. No matter how many details I was adding, it always seemed to never be enough. In order to finally get the perfect script, I took a lot of advice from the professor who led me in the right direction. Writing a fully detailed script took doing research outside of what I had previously done in research journals and taking time to actually note specific details I need to include for the documentary to flow smoothly. And that's where I failed in the beginning. I knew that I had to begin with introducing who Adolph Rupp actually was, why he was important in our topic, and explain some of his contributions. From there, I went into detail about the current controversies and explained why people thought he was racist, while explaining specific stories and quoting specific sentences from Rupp. After explaining some of his actions that could have been labeled as racist, I continued by describing instances where he didn't seem so racist and named specific stories where he tried to help African American players. This created the balance that was previously described so that we wouldn't take a side as to whether he was racist or not. Instead, it was just us simply describing research and the full story as a whole to allow the audience to choose on their own which side they took. Also, writing the perfect script required me to take into consideration the visuals used. For example, I knew that photos of the team were shown, so I used the script to name off which teams were which and made sure to have the editor align the script with the photos perfectly.
Show are photos of some of Rupp's teams. Shown respectfully are Adolph Rupp's 1950 to 1951 team, his 1951 to 1952, and his 1965 to 66 team.
Communicating my ideas to my group while I was still in the process of writing the script was very important because we all had the same deadlines. I knew that everybody else's part would primarily come from the script, which was my part, so it was only fair to communicate as much as possible until my final draft of the script was complete. Before reaching a final draft, I had to make plenty of changes as I went along in order to describe everyone being brought up, their situation, and go further in detail to explain exactly how they played a role in this topic. This was major for my audience to understand every single detail and everything that was going on throughout the entire documentary.
When we first started and chose a documentary topic, I chose the Rupp Arena, and not because of the name, but because of the construction. And I wanted to see where it was overcoming. Like, right now, I'm pretty sure that it's still not done. It's like broken in half right now, but It changed to the name because it has so much history and background, and I actually learned a lot in researching about it. So everybody knows that the Rupp Arena was named after Adolph Rupp, the head coach that won a lot of things. He basically got us out there, and in this documentary, I wanted to show like just what Rupp did for Rupp Arena to explain why his name basically was chosen to be the name of the Rupp Arena, like just to show purpose, because not everybody knows why exactly he was named after it. So that's why me and my group, we did the intro into saying what he did, how many games that they won, because once you see all the accomplishments that Rupp did with everybody in UK, like you understand why the name was what it was. And then going into the documentary, we had found many sources that had claims of him being a racist and claims of him not being a racist. And we wasn't trying to pick a side, so we did give examples of both how he could have been shown as a racist and how he couldn't have been shown as a racist. So in this documentary, we showed many photos of Rupp's past teams and his most current teams, and we also watched a documentary that was made about Rupp and put a clip in there because that was one of the main sources that talked about how Rupp wasn't a racist. It's actually a nice documentary. You can find it on YouTube if you guys want to go watch it. But they basically were talking about how Rupp was understood, and he was actually a nice guy and not a racist. So we wanted to make sure that a clip of that was in the documentary to make sure people see both of the sides. And then we go on to talk about the Black players that have been either on the team or were going to be on the team, because there were 2 African American players that were going to be on the team, but they were scared because they could have been harassed or hurt because of how bad racist people were treating them back in the day. So we wanted to make sure that that was in the documentary to make sure everybody knew that. Then we wanted to end it off by showing everything, showing the Rupp Arena and asking everybody what they thought about if Rupp was a racist or not, because it's not a really easy question. There is like some allegation that's like, yeah, you can definitely say that he is, and then some that it's not. But I like how the documentary came out. It really tells.
I'm RJ, and I was in charge of the music and finding all the music and what would go into the documentary. And so before I set out to find the certain music that I wanted to use, I kind of reflected on the topic that we were covering and made sure when I was picking the music that it went along with the topic. And because our topic was so heavy, with it being about racism, I wanted to make sure that it was music that was like appropriate because of how heavy our topic was and the history of everything else that had happened. So I chose music that was a little more slower in pace and not as upbeat, because I knew it would kind of set the mood and tone for the documentary. So I did that. And along with setting the mood and tone, I knew that the music would be very important because it would kind of enhance what the narrator was talking about at the time. So I used it to enhance emotion, but also there wasn't music a part of every single scene in the documentary, because I knew that since music is such a powerful tool to use in the documentary to kind of drive the plot and to do many other things, that it would be important to have silence so the audience could still just kind of take in the information that they be given. And although the music was more calm, I still wanted it to be able to hold the audience's attention because I knew that ultimately that was one of its main purposes. Because if we didn't hold their attention, then they wouldn't retain the information, therefore it would like reflect badly. So I just wanted to make sure the music held their attention and kept them captivated so that they were able to retain all of the information and come to their own conclusion about whether rupp was racist or not. And
my name is Maggie Slosher, and I was lucky enough to be the editor of this documentary group project. To bring emphasis to this work, I coordinated timings with what we were talking about in the narration. I felt like the audience being able to visualize Coach Rupp as a person, rather than just a name to bash, would bring more of a truthful light to his name. Other than just timing, I used aspects such as transition, volume adjustments, background music, and opening and closing slides. These aspects were to create emphasis, flow, and focus points for our documentary. The timing was the most time-consuming aspect of this documentary. I had to organize all of the photos and videos we planned on using on my desktop screen based off of their topic. I discovered that when I placed the visuals in the folders based on their topic, it was much easier to find what I needed. To match the narration time with the visuals, I downloaded the MP3s that Vanelli sent me and listened to each clip. As I was listening, I had iMovie opened and placed the visuals that related to what she was saying in the My Media tab. After this, I would add the voiceover clip to iMedia Movie. Once these pieces were put together, I would play them together and lengthen or shorten the visuals until they were pieced together perfectly. I felt like the visuals needed to precisely match up with the narration so the audience could visualize what we were talking about. This aspect also creates great emphasis overall. I repeated this process for all 13 narration clips. Once this was completed, I rewatched it and added visuals in between each clip to lengthen the documentary. After this, I went through and put fade to black transitions in between each photo to photo space, and to switch it up, I put the swap transition between photos and videos. I feel like this small touch made the documentary more put together and different. From this point, I added music to the areas not filled with narration, especially at the beginning and end. I felt like at these points, it helped create the tone of the documentary. One thing that I had to fix was the volume of each narration and music piece added. The music always had to be brought down in volume percentage, where the narration had to be brought up in volume percentage. This was especially important in areas where the narration overlapped the music. I also realized that the music often startled me when starting out after a moment of silence. This is where I had to add volume adjustments. These adjustments allowed me to slowly increase the volume over time, sort of like when you turn up the car stereo. I did this at the beginning and the end of the clips to smoothen the flow of the documentary overall. To bring the documentary to the full 360, I kind of stretched the idea of circle narratives. I matched the introduction page to the end page with the design. I did this so the audience could recognize that the film was coming to an end when they saw that page.
For my visual, I would like to show how I edited the documentary. The beginning part is where I added the background and did the dispute of Adolf Rupp. And then I would like to show where I did the media area. This is all the pictures and vocals that I added. And then these are just different types of editing tools I got to use. And I never used backgrounds, but that was like another option that I had. And then these are all the transitions that I got to pick from.
Very proud of the work that my group put together, and I truly hope that our audience thinks that we worked to the best of our abilities to get our message across.
Overall, I think our group was able to work really well together and kind of come together and get everything squared away for our final product, which think we could all be happy with. From Benelli getting all the research and assisting Ariana with the script, Sean collecting the visuals, me with the music, and then Maggie getting it all together and kind of helping to flesh out that final piece as being the editor. In addition to that, I also feel like our group was able to work really well together because some of our topics and things that we had to include in the documentary had a little overlap, such as like me and Maggie, when she was editing the documentary, like knowing when to have music, when not, and things like that.